All right, so let's go ahead and add sign numbers. First thing we have to do to understand when we're adding sign numbers is this thing called an absolute value. Most of you might have remembered um, this absolute value is a set of parentheses that are straight. Most parentheses only do one thing, which is group. Absolute values not only group, they do something different. And some of you will remember that anything in absolute value comes out as positive. Well, that is true. An absolute value of -5 is a +5. Absolute value of +5 is still +5. Well, let's understand that just a little bit better here. Let's come over here. Let's make a number line. Number line's at 0 is the midpoint. Let's go ahead and make that a curved or a skewed kind of number line as best I can over here. Let's take this -5 value. Let's come over here, and this is this 5 value. If we pretend that this guy is a book, right, and it hinges right here at 0, and we take this book and we slam it shut, we're going to find that -5 and 5 will hit the exact same point, which means they have the same distance. Well, I don't care anything about distance. One thing you do know about distance is that it can't be negative. I don't care if I'm 50,000 feet in the air, you bury me 6 feet in the ground. Nobody comes out with a tape measure and goes, darn it, I forgot my negative tape measure. So our distance will always be positive. Okay, so let's go to the next slide over here. I'm using a different method, so it may take me a little bit more today. Okay, and right now I'm going to try something here. I'm going to try a text pin so some of you can read me a little better. Won't work for everything, but let's say that I am adding the same sign. Now, we're going for simplicity's sake, make this as easy as possible, okay? So when we're adding the same sign, we will only be adding 2 numbers together, and those will be whole numbers. And yes, when we're adding signed numbers, we are talking about positives and negatives. So in this case, when we add the same sign, let's try a couple problems here. Let's go 3 plus 4. And then let's try a -7 and a -2. So as you can see in this first problem I put up here, that 3 plus 4, you don't have a sign. Well, you do. They're positive. And if you forget your sign, and all of us have, doggone it, I forgot that negative sign. Well, that means everything in the world, because what should have been negative is now counted as positive. So these guys here are positive. These guys are adding the same sign. They just both happen to be negative. Well, there's a couple rules that you have to understand. And here again, yes, we're back on rules. Right? The first rule relates to that previous slide. First thing you're going to do is add the absolute value. And then, and only then, when you're done adding the absolute value, you would apply the sign. Which sign? Well, the common sign. Okay, so if I go back up here, and I'm going to do this in a different ink so you can maybe see that. So when I do this, I'm going to add their absolute value. So the absolute value of +3 is 3. The absolute value of +4 is 4. And you get 7. Well, what should that sign be? Well, that sign is actually positive. But I don't need it there, because if I don't put it there, it's the same as putting 7 on there. All right? When it comes to it, is down here, and this is where it makes a difference, because the absolute value of -7 is 7, the absolute value of -2 is 2. 7 plus 2 is actually 9. What sign is it? Well, it is negative, and I have to have that, because -9 and +9 are not the same numbers. So what does this help us do? Well, it helps us do a lot of things. For one, and I'll just give you one more example here, we can take a number, a problem. Let me get back up here. My pen can write a little. Let's take 4 plus 2 plus a -3 plus 1 plus -7 plus a -3 plus 8. And what this allows us to do is every time we're adding the same sign, we get that sign. So here I'm going to do all my positives. So hopefully this comes out red. I have a 4, a 2, a 1, and an 8. And when I add those guys together, 4 and 2, 6 and 1 is 7, and 8 is 15. So I get 15 for my positive guys. Now, I'm also going to get plus my negative guys, right? Well, what are my negative guys? Well, my negative guys, let's do a different color here. Yeah, why not? Purple maybe? Sure. So I've got a -3, I've got a -7, and I got a -3. Well, if I add them without the signs, this is 3 and 7 is 10, and 3 is 13. Apply the common sign, and I get a -13. Now we have a 15 plus a -13. This is a great preview for the next section, because when I subtract, I'm going to go ahead and find the difference between their absolute values, which is 2, sign a little larger. Or a positive times a negative is a negative, and 15 minus 13 is still 2. So you can use it in that way. Now, please don't forget, we did this for simplicity's sake, right? You cannot, absolutely cannot forget that this can get longer. You must still know your rules for fractions, and you must know your rules for decimals. Let's see if it follows along on that one. By Joe, look at that. So please don't forget, when we add fractions, we have to have a common denominator. When we add decimals, we must line them up.